Okay, to make this video, I wanted to let you guys know, to make this video, it costs a lot of resources. And as you can see, I'm down to 218, 200, I'm gonna be down to like 200 less Mystic here. We have now fully level 90'd the swords. So the swords we got right now are this one, 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 all the level 90s except for this, because that doesn't really matter. And we also, because it costs all this, we also have to do another 5-star weapon, which is going to be the new weapon, which is the Mystic Blade or whatever it's called, the Mist Splitter. And this video costs a significant amount of resin. If you want to know exactly how much resin, I had to do this 4 times. Each time we do a full day of resin refreshes, which I do nearly every day, this is $10 of resin. It's $50 of resin. Ugh. All right, so we have tested Ayaka on a bunch of different builds as far as like how you can use her. I have not, of course, tested her with the new artifact set yet because it's really hard to farm that out and get that done. So this is gonna be all this is going to be based on the first couple days of experience on Ayaka. For the last few weapon tier lists, we have gotten a lot more positive responses for Kazuha. There was a lot more people that talked about what they liked about this one there, and of course there was not really anything in here that really showed that you guys had anything differences in opinion on this one. So I'm gonna keep the format the same as last time for Kazuha's weapon tier list, and we'll take all the feedback that you put in here in the videos, of course, in consideration for the next weapon tier list, which would be for potentially Yoimiya. So let's go and jump into it. Okay, so you know that none of this is gonna be ordered. All of it's gonna be just a disordered tier list based on just category of use. The first tier we're gonna be having here is the dumpster fire tier. These weapons are not good at all on Ayaka. Sorry, Ayaka, don't use these. Go hide them. All right, all of these weapons, whether at Refine 1 or Refine 5, depending on whether they're in this tier list, are bad, including the Festering Desire at Refine 1. Very, very bad weapon for Ayaka. Don't use that. Harbingers on Refine 1. Don't you want to use any 3 stars in any of these weapons at Refine 1. Favonius is also pretty bad with her at Refine 1. Don't even consider it. Iron Sting, not the best. You can get the elemental damage in, but it just doesn't trigger enough for at Refine 1 for the passive to be even worth it with elemental mastery. So I would not even bother going for an R1 Iron Sting. It starts ramping up a little bit after that though. So pretty much everything in here is not the greatest. However, when we go up to another tier, which is the usable but not ideal tier list, these are weapons that are going to be pretty darn good for Ayaka. Not great, not the best, but they're definitely usable and they definitely feel like you can see some damage. First up, we got the R5 Flute. Now the R5 Flute, since you are using normal attacks consistently, on Ayaka, you can potentially get this weapon to proc, and it does a little bit of damage. It's not an ideal weapon. It is an attack percentage weapon, so it will boost her and help her a little bit, but not the greatest. And the same can be said pretty much for the Royal Swords. These two weapons are kind of like just weapons in general, and I wouldn't work with them. Next up, we have Harbinger of the Dawn. You could use this with Ayaka, but the big thing about Harbinger of the Dawn at Refine 5 is that it's not going to be a very strong weapon in context for Ayaka unless you're using a shield. Cool Steel will be very good because it's a weapon early game. So if you're looking for the 3-star of choice, the 3-star of choice weapon is definitely the Cool Steel. So if you're looking for a free play weapon for a really, really early game, that's what it is. If you are looking for another weapon, it's going to be Iron Sting at Refine 5. You have it for Kazuha, but you're like not using Kazuha right now, but you want a weapon. It can be used here because you'll get the passive on that and will do decent damage. An extra 24% damage is always good. We got Sacrificial and Favonius R5 here. Sacrificial R1, not the greatest for Ayaka. At higher refines, maybe, but like at low refines, a high 20-second plus cooldown on a very low base attack weapon is really not the way to go. And the Favonius with a very low base attack as well, also bad options for Ayaka. They're usable weapons, not the best. Potentially for Lion's Roar, if you're building Melt Ayaka, you could say the Refined 5 version could go up a tier, but her cryo application is extremely high, so it actually is going to make it so this weapon is really weak because you're going to override Pyro on enemies way too often for you to utilize this type of weapon. And there's not, even with every Pyro support in the game, you'll never get reverse melts consistently. So I just don't find the Lion's Roar to be a good option, but it's definitely a usable option, and you could definitely see some damage with it if you know how to play her correctly. We got prototype rank card R5 and R1, not really good options, but if you have them in your inventory, you just want to use them for now, it's fine. And we have the new craftable weapon. I don't remember what it's called, like anyways, this weapon. If you aren't crafting Iron Sting and you aren't crafting the prototype rank ore, at Refine 1, since it's an attack percentage based weapon with some energy recharge on it, there's nothing bad about this weapon for Ayaka. It's definitely usable, but it's definitely not an ideal weapon at Refine 1 as a 4-star craftable. So I would not say that it's a bad weapon to start out with Ayaka, because she has a very high energy cost, so it's okay. Next up in the tier, we have the decent tier. These weapons are all fairly good on Ayaka, okay? None of these weapons are bad on Ayaka. They're all good. The best possible weapon, I would say, for free-to-play players is going to be the Black Cliff Longsword. If you are looking for the free-to-play option, it is the Black Cliff Longsword. It is by far the best option out of any other 4-star weapon out there. There is no other thing that even comes close to it. It's going to be the best 4-star weapon. The only other weapon that's even come close to this, and this is for a paid option, of course, is the Black Sword. But unfortunately, since Ayaka is cryo, unless you're getting under, like, say, 30% crit chance or so, and you're getting really low in the crit chance values for Ayaka, and you have very high crit damage, because of the way the 4-piece set of cryo works, if you're running that build, the Black Sword is really hard to optimize for stats unless you have just ridiculous crit damage and attack percentage ratios and you have almost no crit chance whatsoever in that build. It's kind of hard to use Black Sword, but if you can make it work, then of course it's good for you. Between the two weapons, if the Black Cliff passive goes off, it is probably better than the Black Sword overall because your elemental skill and elemental burst are bigger. So I think from what I've seen on damage, that's the damage rollout for me. For the Festering Desire at Refine 5, I was not really a big fan of this weapon. I actually think this weapon's very poor for Ayaka. The elemental skill damage that you're probably seeing here is really decent, but the elemental burst and the elemental and the normal attack charge attack falls off very heavily. So I feel like the weapon's far less impactful unless you're just doing a spam E build. But she's on a 10-second cooldown for this. You're probably not going to switch to Ayaka every 10 seconds to use this weapon. It's better suited for a character like Bennett. Next up, we have the I don't even remember, the Freedom Sword. The Freedom Sword at Refine 1, I'm not sure how it rolls out for this character, but I'm assuming it's very good. I do have a Refine 5 that you're seeing here, and the Refine 5 Freedom Sword is a very strong weapon overall. The Refine 1 version is probably just as good for melt compositions, and because you boost normal charge attacks whenever you create elemental reactions, you can do that pretty easily on Ayaka. So you can get yourself a nice normal charge attack style weapon that boosts attack percentage, and overall it's a really good weapon. I think the only issue with it is, of course, it's an elemental mastery main stat versus your crit chance main stat, so you do lose some power on that, and it does feel like a little bit less good. Both versions of the Aquila Favonia for R1 through R5 are definitely decent here, and I definitely find them to be okay options. They're definitely usable and good, but they're not going to be best in slot options by any means. The only thing that you get out of them is high base attack, and I really didn't really feel like that was broken with these weapons. I felt like the Black Cliff was just as good at a Refine 1, actually. Next up, we got the Skyward Swords. The one you're seeing here is a level 80 Skyward. I don't have enough crystals to do it because, as you saw from this video, we leveled 3 separate weapons, the Black Sword and the Black Cliff Sword, to 90 to even compare them for Ayaka for this video, so I don't have enough to do it for 80 for this weapon as well. And as well as do the new 5-star weapon and the next 5-star weapons and the craftable weapons, so just don't have enough. But it's a decent option. It's not great. The refines of this weapon don't really help too much for her, so you can get some cool normal attacks and like some procs on it, but it's not going to be crazy. Some of the procs that you saw here are cool, but that's it. Refine 5 Sacrificial Sword is extremely low damage. But seeing how you use these 2 elemental skills, it does work, but it's way better on Shinchu. So if you want to use Shinku, make sure that you are doing that for him. It's way better on him. It's much worse on Ayaka, but it does about the same damage because you have 2 elemental skills, so it evens out. Next up, we got the Alley Flash. And at Refine 1 and Refine 5, if you're not using a shield, which a lot of Ayaka teams that I see are not using a shield, you probably don't want to use this weapon. I find this weapon to be a very good support weapon. It's overall, the Alley Flash at Refine 1 and Refine 5 is extremely good. But if you're not using a shield character, which is typically what I see for Ayaka compositions, or any melt composition for Ayaka, you're probably not going to like this weapon. It's a good option. It does a lot of damage, but you definitely need a shield to run with it. The next on the list is going to be the new Ayaka NM emoji weapon at Refined 5. This weapon at Refined 5 is going to give you a significant amount of energy battery back with a high attack percentage with low base attack. So you probably want to run a character like Bennett with this weapon, because if you're using Bennett with this, then you get the stat transfer from Bennett and get some crit ratios from it as well. The weapon's okay for her. I don't find it to be a best in slot weapon overall for 4 stars. I find this to be a very good weapon, just not a best in slot weapon. It's just definitely a very strong weapon for the new craftable that you can use. It's not going to do enough damage. I, of course, have not made it because Inazuma is vast and there are too many ways to go wrong with this weapon for too many other things. And I spent all my craftables on Iron Sting because, let's be honest, Kazuha with Iron Sting fucking slaps, and this weapon was cool, but it was, you know, labeled way too late, and Iron Sting's like way cooler for Kazuha, so I don't know. If you don't have refines on your Iron Sting for Kazuha, then yeah, it's a great weapon to craft. All right, next up we have the very strong tier. These weapons are all really good across the board. There's nothing bad with these weapons. They're all the best possible weapons that you can use for Kazuha, and they're all pretty even in power level. Between a Blacklift Longsword at Refined 5 and the new Mistsplitter at Refine 1, the damage is a little bit higher on Mistsplitter, but not so much higher that you're like, damn, it's broken. And it really just depends on your stat ratios. If you have a low attack percentage, a high attack percentage, etc., and what you're really gaining on your artifacts to see which one's better between the Blacklift Longsword and the Mistsplitter. The Black Sword at Refine 5, I think it's going to be a weaker option overall unless you have a very, very high attack percentage overall on your artifacts with low crit chance and high crit damage, as I mentioned earlier. But the elemental skill and elemental burst from using the Blacklift Longsword Refined 5, if you get any kills, will immediately, with just one stack, start outstripping the Black Sword. So at one stack with this weapon, you're starting to outstrip the Black Sword pretty heavily, and the only thing that's weaker is going to be the charge attack value. The elemental skill and elemental burst will be much higher because the base attack increase on the Blacklift Longsword being better, so definitely a better option there. And seeing how crit damage is much more valuable for Cryo, Blacklift is definitely the best 4-star option. Then going into the Summit Shaper, I have yet to test this weapon, but just based on using a shield with this weapon, I can see this weapon being an extremely powerful weapon in general, and I don't see any problems at Refine 1 or Refine 5 for this weapon, seeing how elemental damage is pretty easy to get for Ayaka, and Kazuha can utilize this pretty heavily. But if you are a player that has the Summit Shaper, it's a really strong option for Ayaka, definitely on par with both the Jade Cutter and the Mistsplitter Longsword, depending on your stat ratios. Jade Cutter, of course, is a good option for Ayaka. I'd say not as good as the Mistsplitter Sword, of course, because she's a Cryo character and crit chance is much easier to get. So I would say Jade Cutter is a less valuable option and definitely lower damage on DPS. But the Cryo build, the 4-piece Cryo set, is not the only build, and that's why both the Black Sword and the Jade Cutter make it up to this tier, because you can actually use 2-piece Cryo and 2-piece Gladiator in order to abate some of the attack percentage concerns, or potentially even go into other builds entirely and try out different things. You could even try the new artifact set to go for more normal and charge attack set, and then in which case, of course, the Jade Cutter and the Black Sword are going to be much better for those options. Next up, we have the Flexlord tier, which is the second to last tier on this tier list. Of course, for the Refined 5 weapons, these are all the best possible weapons for Ayaka, all of which are pretty similar in power level. I'd say that, of course, the Mistsplitter is going to be the best. Jade Cutter most likely will probably be second best, and then thirdly, Summit Shaper. The highest damage potential will be on these two weapons, I would say, but I'm not sure because I'd have to test between this, and I'm not a Giga Whale, so I'm starting to become one because Twitch chat, twitch.tv/Sekapoko has been helping out so much. Thank you guys over at Twitch. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And finally, we have the best in-slot weapon for Ayaka. It is clearly the best option, the Fillet Blade. It's better on Ayaka. It's so much better on her. It's insane. I don't know why that Kazuha had it in the trailer. I'm actually super triggered that Ayaka had it stolen by Kazuha. Like, if you actually go look in the lore for Kazuha, he stole it from Ayaka. He's kind of a dick. I'm over Kazuha now. He's kind of a jerk. Whatever. But all right, guys, well, that's gonna do it for this video. My name is Sekapoko. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did enjoy the video, of course, like, subscribe, all the fun stuff, and you have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.